So we're going to go on to our next topic, how anime has integrated into retro gaming scene. And this is a Chris topic. So,
So why?
so I know, Chris, you wanted to bring up this topic with seeing an increase of anime fans going into events.
I think we should explain it a little more first before we jump in too much. Basically, yes, retro gaming conventions is a big part of the scene. There are more and more retro conventions now bringing an anime into it. And I will say from a collector's perspective, someone who's not an anime, so I'm obviously biased. Most of the collectors I talk to are like, hey, that's wasted space over there. Not saying that that's true, right? For the anime, people are like, sweet, we got more stuff. So it just depends who you're talking to.
Yeah.
So how are you juggling that with Retro World Expo? Maybe seeing what other expos are doing. I know we have SoCal coming up. We've had our own talks about it, which we could talk about. But like seeing like, do you feel a actual demand for it within the scene? Do you see it changing, or are you like, hey, yeah, I see it or I don't see it, but I have no intentions of even bringing that in because I want to be collectors, video games?
So Retro World, we've been running for 9 years now, and certainly like 9 years ago we probably would have even been having this discussion. Not that anime wasn't around. Mm-hmm. What I think I've seen over the last maybe 4 or 5 years is that there is a lot more anime that you're seeing at these gaming conventions. And we've had these discussions with Retro World and again with SoCal as to like, how much anime do you want there? And we have a fair amount of anime that comes in. And first of all, I have nothing against the anime.
Totally.
I like anime a lot. I've watched plenty of shows. But we always were founded on it being like a retro gaming convention.
Yeah.
And what I've seen over the years, and this actually goes back to some other conventions, that the anime, it tends to perhaps take over the show, where it becomes more of an anime show than even a retro gaming show. So I think the real question is like, do they complement each other? Absolutely. And is there a huge demand for anime? There is. Do you sacrifice the retro gaming or the gaming in general by introducing a lot of anime to your show? In other words, does it almost like take over the whole show once you open up the floodgates to anime? So being a show owner and you guys being a show owner now, it's kind of like, do you want to stay true to being a gaming, even maybe a retro gaming or just gaming? Maybe it's modern gaming that you want to have. And how much anime do you want to have come in?
Yeah, because there is a lot of crossover between anime art and just the overall games aspects of it. So, I mean, like, because you got a lot of JRPGs from, like, earlier PlayStation games, and you got, like, Yu Yu Hakusho was, like, its own thing on
even
Game
Pokemon.
Boy. Yeah, Pokemon is another, like,
anime.
Small anime aspect of it.
I think what's hard for me is, again, I'm not into anime, right? So we don't even have to necessarily say anime. It could be anything, right? That moves alongside video games, right? Because anything really in nerd culture kind of is encompassing, right? It could be video games,
comics,
superhero stuff, comics, anime, cartoon shows, Saturday morning cartoons, any of that stuff. So really it's about, for me, the reason I would never lean into it is because I am not passionate about anime in any way. Again, no hate. I'm just not passionate about it. So I could find myself, if I allowed it to kind of start creaking in, I feel like I'd be less excited to put on a show, right? I'd be less excited to talk to the vendors of selling it. I feel like I'd be less intelligent. Like, right, when I talk to game collectors, right, being a game collector for so long, when we do the show, coming up, we get to talk to the people as intelligent people alongside them. Yeah. Hey, how are you going to set up this? What about this? Oh, maybe that should go in the back. Chrono triggers this. Oh, we'll have an event for this. Oh, because, I know Smash Bros. Does really well. Do you guys want original GameCube controllers on hand? Anybody want Wavebirds? Versus if it's anime stuff, I'd be less intrigued to want to talk to the vendors in the community. I'd almost be like hiding from them because I'd almost feel like a fraud, even though I know that's not what it is. But like, I don't know this scene, but I'm putting on this scene for you guys, but I have no investment into it at all. Mentally, physically, anything.
Yeah, so I know that would be like one of your drawbacks from it, but what would be one of the benefits of adding anime?
Money. Yeah. I'll tell you the main benefit.
Money.
And I think why you see some shows doing this is anime is obviously, it's massive.
Massive. Yeah, the Anime Expo in Los Angeles was
one of the biggest. Huge. I think they had like 80,000.
I think they I think they oversold that by too much. Like, it was just claustrophobic is what I've heard.
Yeah, so. And it just has a massive, super diehard following. And there's another reason why it's attractive to a lot of shows too, is it's a younger audience. Us being older, is...
Just kidding.
Well, getting a little bit older now, like the retro gaming community I'm in my 40s. Like, how long will we be attending shows? I mean, you could look at comic conventions, and certainly there's been a long-standing, like, people wanting to go to, say, a New York Comic-Con or a San Diego Comic-Con that have been around for forever. But even if you go to those shows, how much of it is actually comics? That has retracted smaller and smaller and smaller. There's still... Last time I was at New York Comic-Con, I want to say was like 5 years ago. There was still a good amount of comics there, but there's a lot of other stuff there.
Yeah.
They become more of a multicultural fandom geek show.
I like crossover.
Yeah, and I like crossover too.
But not to where it take crossover versus takeover.
And I'm not going to name any shows, but there have been a few shows that I have seen that have started off with, let's be a multi-genre show where we have comics, games, and anime.
Like a nerdcon type of thing.
And I've seen them over the years morph into more or less just an anime show. Lost touch with the video games, lost touch with the comics even. I've seen them try to get back into wanting to have more of that.
It's too late, Sally.
But it might be too late. Now, again, the money reason, like, you could look at like a retro gaming show and say, well, you know what? Why don't we just introduce anime and, call it such and such anime and gaming. We'll get a ton more people in. But all of a sudden, does the gaming go like this? And I'm retracting, to almost nothing.
And it's hard.
Does it take over?
We're so integrated into the retro people. That's what we do. There's no shame in being like proud of what your thing is. Ours is retro, right? We hear it from people, right? We've heard like, oh man, that's like your people, right? You're defending your people. Like, where's the games at, bro? Like, I came here for games. Like, so you're almost like, I want to like be like the stronghold of like, we're gonna sell 10 million retro games at SoCal Expo, like Braveheart style out with it. I'm curious of your opinion though, Ricky. You haven't said much.
I mean, here's the thing. I love I like Dragon Ball Z,
you do
Pokemon. I love all that stuff. But to me, like that stuff, they actually made video games for. So I almost feel like it would belong into it. But like the newer stuff, it's just so it has nothing to do with gaming. It's almost more adult, if anything. Like
the manga
all
style.
The anime, like the manga stuff. I can't take my kids to the expo like that. And I love sharing that with my kids. Like I want to take them to the expo and not have to worry about
you just hit something huge on the head.
Yeah.
I mean, because it becomes not family friendly.
How do you as like an owner, how would you be able to regulate that? Because a lot of anime is on the manga side where it is.
I would tell them.
Exposing.
You show any of that stuff and you're out of here, dude. I want kids here. I want families to feel welcome. And I want this to be a place I love. We say our favorite things are when we see kids into retro gaming.
Yeah.
I don't want a kid's first experience to be seeing Yu Nipple Show or something.
Yeah.
Yo, watch your mouth. Don't you ever mess with Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, no, I'm not literally.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying, but
see it. It's like,
don't you ever mess with that one.
It also makes we're not hating on any group. It could be anything in the world. Even hookup skateboards can come off that way, right?
Yeah. Like, and I love hookup skateboards.
So do I. I tried to buy a shirt the other night from Drew, but I couldn't get it.
Those shirts are like $350.
I know. That's why I was topped out at like $250, but it does make the event feel a little different, right? Even when you walk by a booth, and we've recently did that. We walked by a booth, and this guy had tons everywhere, and he had to put like duct tape over it, and this and that, like adults only, and it just kind of gave off a vibe that I wasn't like that. It doesn't feel the same, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like, a dumb example, like Nintendo, like, yeah, everything's welcome, and it just feels like everybody fun. And then I saw it, and I was like, ooh, it felt seedy.
Yeah, I guess
almost like didn't want to look when I walked
by. I haven't
by.
had to deal with that too much. Like at Retro World, I think what we've tried to do, and with SoCal, we might try to do this as well, where it's like 80% retro gaming.
Yes.
And there'll be a few. There's always going to be some anime, and I love our anime vendors. The art
guys too.
The art guys and the artists that come to the show are awesome, and some of their anime art is amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's not like I go through and go, okay, well, we're only going to allow 5 anime guys. It's just it kind of naturally, I think, is dictated by the show owners. Like, okay, we are a gaming show.
Yes.
Anime fits perfectly with this.
Yes.
We have some comic book vendors that come and do awesome at the show and love having some comic books there as well. So they certainly do complement it.
A lot of the manga it's out there, and it's...
Do you ever get into any trouble with cosplay?
I never have. I mean, you're never going to try to control that. I've never heard of any shows having to ever control that.
I won't name names just for the sake of naming names, but we saw one recently where it literally signs cosplay is not consent, which they probably had to put those up because people were probably getting gropey.
Yeah. Now, as a show owner, would you ever like go up to somebody and say that's inappropriate? You're not allowed to dress like that. I don't know. I probably
maybe that's maybe that's something that you'd have to like clarify in the ticket buying process.
Just like any common decency, we get that. Obviously, 90% of if you're dressed up as Melina from Mortal Kombat, it's going to look a certain way, which is fine. But I think when it comes into the level of people pushing the boundaries a little bit too much, where you're like, okay, that's borderline.
Look, I'm all for like the creative aspect of it, the cosplay and all that, but like there is limits to it, right?
There has to
I
be
think we're
limits.
talking two different things. Yeah, one is like the manga, which is actually more porn.
Yes, that's what.
Actual.
But a lot of the anime
that's what I mean.
Is that like the majority is that like when I think of like gaming convention to anime, like I think of like back in the day when Nintendo had their kid friendly. You see the convention, it's kids and like
the old E3s and everything.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say
like Sega when they had their conventions. Like it was like I don't know.
As an anime fan, I wouldn't say the majority of it is. It's definitely a very specific genre of anime. That's all it is. It's just maybe you'd have to regulate it a certain way to where it's like the animation type of anime is the one you're kind of looking for, right? Like,
yeah, and we haven't had any issues with that. We do with Retro World. I've always marketed it as like no XXX stuff. It's not allowed.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's.
But
none with VHS, no DVDs across anything. No comic books can be explicit, so none of that stuff is allowed. But from generally most of the anime vendors, I haven't seen that. You were mentioning that you have, but.
We've seen it.
Oh, you saw it?
We've seen it.
I haven't seen that.
And even there is some cosplay too. Where again, I'm all for cosplay. I think it's awesome. But even certain ones. But there are some where I'm like, that's borderline walking porn. Some of them, not like I get it. In half the Nintendo characters, the Sega, they're sexy on some of them, the way they look. Laura Croft, whatever. But some of them, I'm like, yeah. But some of them push it a little harder. I'm like, dude, if you turn at the wrong angle.
You're gonna be commando like riff.
Yeah, you're gonna see what isn't meant for children to see. So.
And I get it. There's definitely a fine line, and I think that like as you guys finally get the expo up and running, you guys are kind of figure out like where that balance is.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering, like maybe like the integration of larger shows. It seems like the only benefit to anime at the moment has been a larger, younger crowd coming in, right?
Yeah, and if you are a part of that community, it's a huge benefit for you. We never want to. We're not. This isn't us attacking the community, attacking attacking anime, any scene. It's just saying us almost like holding our scene and making sure. And it could go vice versa. If you're an anime expo and we come in and we're like, "Hey, dude, this needs to, like it should be 80% games." You'd be like, "Wait, my community though is anime," So that's where the line I think falters a little. So.
Yeah. All right. We can end that on like that, right? So everybody out there, thank you for listening. Everybody listening, I just want to say,
come on, bro.
Thank you guys for all the support. I just want to say all the audio podcast will be linked in the description as always. And thank you guys for being here. Look at these guys just talking over like
talking over you.
You are the worst. All right.
Love you.
All right, put your foot up like Griff always says. Yeah.
That's good. Oh, that was good.